Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre here for Northeast Conference Front Row. And our special guest today is Marin Gjaja from First Point Volleyball. As you all know, the Northeast Conference has some very big news at this time surrounding men's volleyball. And we wanted to bring in Marin to enlighten us a bit about the sport and also the relationship between First Point and the collegiate game. So without further ado, Marin, thank you so much for joining us today. Start off, if you could, by explaining what First Point is and what the mission is, when it was founded, and all of the good work that you were doing out there.
Ralph, thanks for having me here, and thanks for the NEC for supporting men's volleyball. We see it as crucial for the sport to grow at the collegiate level, and that's really what First Point was founded to do. The First Point Volleyball Foundation was founded by John Speraw, the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, and a number of other folks, myself included in the early days, about 5 years ago, with a sole focus on growing the men's and boys game. And in particular, we focused on trying to grow new collegiate programs, particularly Division I programs. So we've been incredibly excited to support members of the NEC in getting their programs off the ground. And now with the announcement of the league, we get to add an entirely new conference and NCAA competition for men's volleyball. We couldn't be more excited.
Now, why did you personally decide to join First Point's efforts? How did your relationship with the organization come about?
Ralph, it's probably worth going back to how I got started in volleyball in the first place. So I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in upstate New York, a small town called Niskayuna, which is a suburb of Schenectady. And some of your viewers may know where that is. And there happened to be 10 teams in my high school league that had boys volleyball, and it was the only volleyball being played in about 150 miles. And in high school, I played football and baseball and volleyball. And I ended up playing volleyball and football collegiately at Princeton. And ultimately, I ended up an All-American in volleyball and on the US men's team and was an alternate for the '92 Olympics before I retired and moved on to my career. Since then, I've given back to the sport, supporting the sport at Princeton, my alma mater, but also coaching at the youth level. And it's clear to me that over 30 years, things have improved in boys and men's volleyball, but the opportunities are still limited, especially at the collegiate level. The number of Division I programs now, for the first time in about 30 years, exceeds the number that were there when I was in school, despite the number of participants at the high school level quadrupling. So to me, it's really about access and opportunity for boys. We're making progress at the high school level, but we really need to accelerate the progress at the collegiate level, especially at the top collegiate level with Division Is. That's what got me involved in First Point when I met John Speraw through a mutual acquaintance. And I continue to be excited about the mission because I'm a living example of the opportunity to play the game. For me, it happened at the high school level, and then I was fortunate enough to play it collegiately at Princeton. So I see myself as sort of the kind of person who we'd like to create more of. And that's really my goal, is to create more opportunities for young men like myself. If I go back in time, almost 40 years.
Now, of course, volleyball is an international sport, but as you alluded to, in the United States, it gets sometimes pigeonholed as a regional sport out west. California, of course, Colorado, and now to have an all sports NCAA conference get behind the sport of men's volleyball in the Northeast region, in a region that, isn't known for its men's volleyball prospects per se, or as you mentioned, limited opportunities at the youth level, at the high school level. What does this mean for the game and the growth of the game in this region, and hopefully breaking through and making it more of a national sport?
Ralph, I think the NEC's move is huge for our sport. I think, as you mentioned, the sport is somewhat regionally located. There's pockets around the country where it's being played. And there are actually quite a few players scattered across the Northeast, especially if you include Pennsylvania and New York State in your definition. We see this as enormous. It's only the second Division I conference, multi-sport conference to sponsor the sport. So the Big West was the first, and now with the NEC, we have two. So we've doubled the number of Division I conferences, multi-sport conferences that are sponsoring the sport rather than ones that are made for volleyball. We think that's huge. It's a signal of the broad commitment to the sport in these conferences. But we also see it as tremendous geographic expansion. We think that people playing volleyball in a regional area creates that vision of aspiration for the young men and boys who are playing at the high school level. We've got high school volleyball sanctioned in much of the Northeast. And so this is going to really create an end-to-end opportunity for kids to grow up playing the game and then go to what are outstanding colleges and universities in the NEC and participate at the highest level of the sport. So we see it as enormous for the growth of the sport. We think it just keeps reinforcing the growth of our pyramid and pipeline of talent and kids who are getting the experience of playing volleyball.
Why is the sport so important to you? Why are you so passionate about it?
Ralph, well, first off, I'm passionate about it just because of my experience. I just had such a terrific time playing the sport. But perhaps more importantly, I think it's because of the inherent characteristics of the sport. It's a unique sport. It's the second or third most popular sport in the world, depending on how you count. And it's a unique sport in that it combines skills. It's a high skill sport. It's also a power sport. It's explosive, both vertically and horizontally. But lastly, it's the most social of the team sports. It requires a degree of communication and coordination with your teammates and even on the sideline, because your teammates are right next to you cheering you on. You're not interacting with the other team, but yet with your own team, you can never stop play and hand the ball off to someone. You actually have to keep the ball moving always. So the coordination and social aspects of the game are unique among team sports in that way.
Thank you again so much for your time today. Before I let you go, I just want to ask you, will we see you perhaps at a Northeast Conference match in the future, or maybe even the inaugural men's volleyball championship match in 2023?
Ralph, I'd love to attend a game. I've attended NEC university competition because my son plays at Princeton, and so I've seen them play NEC members. So I'm sure we can find a way to make sure that I'm at one of the matches at an NEC location before too long. So I look forward to it, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, I think I know someone that we could probably get you a front row ticket. It's definitely an exciting time at the Northeast Conference with the addition of men's volleyball. And I just want to thank you again. It's Marin Gjaja from First Point Volleyball. I'm Ralph Ventre for the Northeast Conference. Thank you for joining us.